And we are live. Catherine Edwards, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm hot. I've been doing my Benny Hill impression, running around really quickly.
Can I see that, please?
To sit down for an hour. No, I'm really good, thanks. How are you doing?
Well, you need no introduction on my site, on my channel, and it's lovely to have you again. So much has been going on in the last few weeks, and I think the last time we spoke, especially the animal show that we'd done, was an absolute hit, and people found it very, very useful, Catherine. And today's show is going to be about the human connection with animals and their health. I'm excited to hear everything that you've got to say. So thank you once again for being here.
My pleasure. My favorite thing to talk about, as you know, animals, and also what a gift they are to us humans, because you know, they really are like an early warning sign to us in terms of quite often they give us messages about how we need to take more care of ourselves. So, you know, anyone who's got an animal knows how special that relationship is. And there's so much we can learn from them.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm learning a lot from my little Kenzo. You've taught me so much, and you know they do have a personality. But as everyone knows, Kenzo is going through quite a bit of health difficulties, and I think he's kind of mirroring me at the moment, you know, and he's kind of taking on board a lot of what I'm going through emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And it's really funny, like at the moment with this heat and everything, he's just gone a bit bonkers.
Yeah. I think we all do, don't we, in the UK when we get a bit of heat? But for animals, it can be really hard for them, and particularly because Kenzo's a poodle, and obviously he's got a really thick coat. Even when it's clipped, it's still a very, very dense coat. So it makes them can be quite more difficult for them to regulate their temperature. But I really like what you were saying about there earlier about how he's picking up on some of what you're going through, because that's absolutely what happens with our animals in terms of they do pick up what we're going through. And we're such a major, particularly animals that live in the house with humans. So dogs, cats, smaller pets that actually live in such close proximity with us. They pick up on everything from us, but not only that, they're also completely reliant on us to make the best decisions for them.
Yeah, definitely. I've learned so much with Kenzo, and he's got such a little personality. I think he thinks he's human. Right now, he's with my father. My father comes to pick him up every day at 5:30 on the dot. One day, like yesterday, he was with me the whole day, and he didn't see my mum and my dad. He hasn't eaten the whole day as a result. My dad just phoned me. He ate straight away with him. So he's so temperamental and so emotional and sensitive. Yeah. I mean, hello, like his owner. I just want to tell everyone, like I had a bit of a panic before I came onto the show. I was like, oh my God, it's 6:30. I didn't realize the time. And I'm like, Kenzo, he needs his food. It was just a bit of a fluster. But yeah, so he's really, really sensitive and emotionally connected to me and to my whole family.
Yeah.
But there's something that you said yesterday about feeding him before a walk. Now, I know you gave me a really detailed report, and I just want to confess in front of everybody that I didn't read it properly. Can I just tell you, everyone, Catherine is amazing. She really helped me with like all the nutrients and all the stuff that I need for Kenzo while he's going through this gut problem and all sorts. And it was a very extensive report that she wrote for me, and with all the sort of options for his diet and what to do and stuff. And then, you know, I was telling her, yeah, but what about this? And she goes, Alpa, it's all in the report. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, this was back in December. So yeah, there was so much stuff that I referred back to. What I find is helping him a lot at the moment, and I take it, is the iron biome that we mentioned last time in the show.
The iron biome is absolutely amazing, because most of us, well, there's a few really important points in there that you raise, but obviously what we feed our animals and what we feed ourselves is a major, major contributor to our overall physical and emotional balance, basically, and spiritual balance. And, you know, unfortunately, we're living in a society now where we've gone away from where someone would spend most of the day in the kitchen cooking lovely home prepared food to actually sort of a lot of convenience foods. And no, this has hit our pets really, really hard, because unfortunately, all processed food is not like the real thing. You know, just by nature, the more processed it is, the less goodness it has. And we'll go into that in a minute because it's so important. But also it's what you feed your animal and when you feed it, because each animal's digestive system works slightly differently. So with dogs, actually most dogs are better off fed once a day. I don't recommend any sudden changes. Say if you've got a 14-year-old dog and they've been fed twice a day all their lives, don't necessarily change that. But dogs' pancreases and digestive systems work very differently, well, quite differently to a human. Yeah. And in the wild, a dog would eat a big meal and then rest for several hours to digest it, because their digestive tract is very short and it has to do a lot of work in a short amount of time. So with dogs, it's really important not to exercise them, ideally within 2 hours of eating.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about they can't go on the lead to go out and do a wee and a poo. They can do that, but you wouldn't take them for a long walk or a jog or play around with them, because it really upsets the digestive process.
Yeah.
But the iron biome, I mean, it's fantastic. And there is a discount link on my site for that, actually, because I've been working with that product for quite a few years. And the reality is all of us now are living in a human environment, and our gut, as you know so much about gut health as well, but our gut is bombarded by the chemicals in our air, in our water, by whatever people are putting on and in there, their dogs, etc. So all of our microbiomes are under a lot of stress. With dogs, quite often people use chemical flea treatments, wormers, which we'll come on to later on in the chat, I'm sure. But all of this puts a lot of pressure on the microbiome. And we now know at least 90% of the immune system happens in the gut. So if your gut's not intact, with the cell wall intact and also not full of toxins, then you're not absorbing any of your other nutrients. So I use the iron burn for my cats, my dogs, the humans. And then for the larger animals like horses, I use a really good quality humic acid.
Wow.
I'm going to put my arms on, actually, so I can see what's popping up.
Yeah, we've just got so many people like just firing up and sending messages. Someone said that I've been a body worker for 35. Hi, Moira Clark. And she says that she's been massaging her dogs. Hello, Raymond. How are you? I'm feeling much better. Can't you see? Thank you for asking. And thank you, everyone. This is a journey. This is a healing journey for us all. I just happen to be doing it quite publicly. But, you know, what I learned in the last 4 or 5 weeks acutely, especially since I've been having the treatment, is that, you know, it all does begin in the gut. And I've known that. But until and unless you get an assessment done, and this biofrequency treatment that I've had, and the plasma light therapy, but the biofrequency health assessment was brilliant, Catherine, just to ascertain at the start, at the root, what was going on, one at a cellular level, and what was going on with all my organs and every part of my body. And then we work backwards like that. So it's not just assessing, all right, you've got a problem with the liver or something like your lungs or what have you. There was something with everything. But now, you know, it honestly, this quantum healing stuff that I'm doing is phenomenal. It really is. And then all the things that I'm doing, like supplementing my gut health, it's been like really transformative in the last 5 weeks for sure. And people can see. Hi, Alistair.
It's so transformative. And the thing is that when us as humans, we can pick up and know ourselves and make decisions for ourselves. But our animals, of course, are reliant on us to notice that. So it's really important that everything we're learning for ourselves, as you do, that we take on board for our animals as well, because they're reliant on us to notice those subtle signs. So most of us know when something's going a bit out of balance with our own health. You know, you get a small symptom, and then if you ignore it, you get a slightly larger symptom. And then if you ignore that, you get something a little bit more dire, and eventually you take action. And that happens to be human nature, you know. But with our animals, we as their parents have got a real duty of care to notice those small signs before things get very out of balance. And actually, just like you said with your health helper, everything is linked. So, you know, you can't separate the effect that stress has on a human or an animal on their health. And, you know, we all know that our animals pick up our stress, pick up our anxiety. I've got a couple of animals that really mirror that. And even if I might be trying to fool myself and say, no, I'm fine, some of my animals are telling me, no, you're not. You really need to do some breathing. You need to go to some heart-centered breathing, get back into heart-brain coherence, and then come into my space. So they can be really good reflections for us. There's no bullshit with animals. You know, they take
I want to actually extend on what you said about stress, because that's really, really important. And I'm noticing that with Kenzo a lot. And, you know, the viewers are just firing up. Thank you so much, everyone. And I think this is something for us all to be like mindful is our sort of energy around our pets, because even if we're not saying anything, Kenzo gives me the look like, I know something's not right with you, Mum. Like, even if I pretend and I'm all like, you know, Kenzo and all bubbly, he just knows. And like, you know, it's almost like he's a human being himself, but he just can't speak. So stress has such a huge impact on his moods. Every day I notice that. And I said to my mum, it's so important. I mean, one, he's a really sensitive dog. I mean, whose dog is he? It's mine, you know. But it's so important how we are around them.
It really is. And the thing that I love about animals, throughout this whole journey, this sort of, you know, journey we've all been on over the last year and a half, so many people talk about intuition and connecting in and feeling into your gut. And the thing is, this is how animals live all the time. And so they are some of our best teachers to teach us when we're really getting it on point, because as humans, obviously a lot of our personalities come into it, and animals, of course, they have their own individual personality, but there's no deceit, there's no niceness, there's no politeness. They are very honest in their feedback, and that's what I love so much about them. So I've got loads of different animals: horses, dogs, cats, guinea pigs, husband. Yeah, it's wonderful. And they've all got
the new zoo at Catherine's house.
But some of them are really, you know, so honest in their feedback. So if I'm a bit agitated, the other day I had a rather frustrating phone call with someone, should we say. And then I went down to see one of my horses, and Romeo, one of my horses, just wouldn't come anywhere near me because he was like, don't bring your energy into my space.
Move away from my space.
Away again. And I have to sort myself out. Whereas two of my other horses are much more stoic, and they'll sort of put up with it. But I really appreciate Romeo because he doesn't let me lie to myself. You know, he's a really honest reflection of like, you know what, I'm really giving out the wrong energy. Let me take myself out of his space, sort myself out, and then go back in when I'm in a more balanced space. So it's really, really good for them. And what you were talking about, there's so many brilliant energy healings out there. I mean, I use iridology. I'm an animal iridologist. So I look into animals' eyes to detect health issues, and I use light healing and essential oils and herbs and all sorts of different bioresonance. There's so many wonderful healing techniques out there. And I know some of the people are talking about the cost, but there's always something for something. So we really concentrate on what you can do, not what you can't, because there's a whole range of things. Even just meditating with your animals will do you and your animals so much good, and that costs nothing.
I mean, I'm honestly, if you looked into Kenzo's eyes, he'd be literally speaking to you and saying, my mother's crazy. Can you please help me out? Help this little pup out. Like, you know, she's bonkers. Like, we need to do something about this, Catherine. That's what Kenzo would be saying to you.
It's so funny. I mean, when people communicate with my animals, you know, it's hysterical because animals are so honest in what they say. But what I find really amazing is actually when you're communicating with animals, and we can all do this, is that I'll just come on to that question in a minute, is when you're with your animals and we're all tuning in, just really observing them really helps understand ourselves better as well. So it's a win-win situation. But it's really important to pick up on their body language, on their physical symptoms, and what they are telling us.
Yeah, for sure. So we've just got a question there from, you know, guys, do excuse me. I'm trying to be a little bit technically advanced here, and trying to coordinate everything. So I hope it's all showing. But yeah, we've got a question from Denise Simon saying, can you ladies tell me what is the best way to treat a dog who is prone to yeast on the body? I give her her canned dog food with meat and vegetables only and supplements. Is there something more?
Yeah. So I have got, Denise, there's some good blogs I've written on this. That's on another company that I work with. But yeast on the body is always a sign that the gut microbiome's out of balance. It's a major indicator. So anytime you've got yeast on the body, ear issues, itchiness, assuming it's not fleas, paw licking or paw chewing, etc. All massive signs that the gut microbiome. Now, I hate to tell you, but there is no such thing as a good canned dog food.
I know.
Canned food is completely processed, and what they do is they heat treat it to such a degree to make it safe and last a long while in the can. And then they add lots of synthetic vitamins and minerals in it. And the synthetic vitamins and minerals, which are normally listed as long numbers on the can, unfortunately, the body, whether it's for us or our dogs, doesn't recognize it as the real thing. It's a very cheap alternative to it. So diet is absolutely key. So what I would be doing is I would be going on to a good quality raw diet. And what I say to every pet owner is do the best you can afford. Every single meal, you work within your budget, but there's always a way. Like everything in life, there's always a balance between time and cost. So if you're very busy, you might want to pay more for a ready-made raw food. If you've got less money, then you're going to need to spend a little bit more time yourself and educate yourself into how to balance your dog's food. So raw meat of as best quality as you can. There's certain meats dogs can and can't have, which is probably a bit too much detail for this. I'm a real component of adding organic vegetables to your dog's diet, but try and avoid anything that's too starchy. So with a yeast infection, I can't remember the lady's name again.
Denise.
Starchy vegetables, so no rice, no potatoes, minimize carrots, no sweet.
I was guilty of that the other day. We just had this conversation, didn't we, Catherine? Yeah. I was giving rice and carrots, mixing it with organic, so all organic. Sorry to interrupt there, but rice and carrots, and what else was it? Organic chicken. Yeah. And I said to Catherine, I said, "Oh, Kenzo's just not getting on with the other food, but he loves his rice chicken." And then I put the plus back and the iron biome, and with a bit of spirulina. And I think that with Kenzo's problems and gut problems, and he still licks his paw, so it's still indicative there's issues there with his gut. So starchy vegetables.
So take out the starchy vegetables. So any green organic vegetables. And what I do is I'm just actually, because the type of thing I covered with you in the consult, and I'm going to come on to that report in a minute, because I think it's really indicative of what we're all going through. But I'm just putting together, it'll be ready in about 4 weeks' time, a really good short course, one with my really good holistic vet friend on basic dog and cat nutrition, and another one on all the issues of basic dog, one for dogs, one for cats, one for horses, healthcare, because it's a bit like if you're spring cleaning your house, you've got to get around every room, but depending on whether someone's coming to sit in your lounge, you might start in your lounge first. With animal health, you've got to look at diet, which is absolutely the number one thing. You've got to look at water quality. You've got to look at exercise. You've got to look at companionship. You've got to look at whether you're using a lead or a harness. You've got to look at chemicals in the environment, because of a lot of people walk in parks or farmland where there's lots of sprays. You've got to look at whether you're using things like vaccinations, chemical flea treatments, chemical wormers, etc., because all of those really are very destructive to the microbiome and the general health when they're overused. So there's all these different areas you can look at, and that will be all available very soon in a short course. But at the moment, that's the type of thing I cover in the consult. So with your dog with yeast, if you can afford it, organic, if not the best quality meat you can get, with some pureed green vegetables. Again, if you get organic or sort of not, don't take out the starch, because dogs can really struggle to digest starch because they don't have amylase, which is one of the key enzymes that we humans have in our mouth. They have it in their stomach, but not in their mouth. So they struggle. Any starch turns straight to sugar and will really feed the yeast. And the only other thing, which is really important if you've got yeast infections, cut back. Be really careful. If your dog's going to the groomer, really check that they're not what shampoos and products they're using, and cut back on any chemical flea treatments, tick treatments, wormers, vaccinations, because those will all stress the immune system. Yeah.
And also with everything that we've learned throughout the last 15 months within the medical fraternity, it applies to the vet industry as well. That all this processed foods that we're told to have, it's again a part of the system. So I just thought I'd add that in. We've got another question here from Brian. He says, can you ask Catherine if she has experienced the language of animals in her journey as a small and large vet doctor?
I think what Brian's asking there is, I think Brian's asking about the animal communication.
Yes. I think
Absolutely. That's something that I do as a big part of my work. Everyone can do it. It's so important because the animals are really able to communicate with us. It's us quietening our minds enough and actually tuning in, listening to them, and sort of putting our own preconceptions out the window, so we're picking up honestly what they're feeding back to us. And it's one of the areas I like working with clients on most, because it's so rewarding as the owners start really trusting themselves, because you can all do it, but quite often it's a matter of trusting yourself and just learning to listen, just like we're all trusting ourselves and learning to listen to our intuition with everything else that's going on in the world. Trusting ourselves and thinking, if a thought pops into your mind about an animal, that is your animal trying to communicate and tell you something. So quieten your mind and listen.
Yeah. I have a story to share about that, actually. Around Christmas time, when my mum wasn't well, I was getting some healing work done. And the healer, Kenzo came into the room to disturb me while I was getting it done. I said, "Oh, have a quick look, meet my dog, Kenzo." And this healer, who was very intuitive, and he said, and my mum wasn't not well at that time. And he just said, "Is your mum okay?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" And he goes, "Because Kenzo's telling me that your mum's not well." And a few weeks later, she wasn't well at all. I mean, she's much better now and stuff. Yeah. So I was just absolutely blown away. It was like I was having this remote healing done, and Kenzo just barged into the room. I didn't realize I hadn't closed the door properly. So look at the synchronicity and the sort of spiritual complex of that. So it was just phenomenal. We've got Deborah saying to us that she took her 5 pound poodle to a vet today, and she's pooing blood. Sorry to hear that, Deborah.
That is, I mean, I can't answer questions like that, Deborah. There's so many reasons it can be. You've done exactly the right thing by taking it to the vets. There can be lots of reasons with that. There can be some really, really simple reasons and some more complex. So with anything like that, pooing blood, you've done the right thing. Take it to the vets and get a proper diagnosis. Now, once you've got a diagnosis, if you want to, you can speak to, depending, how down the natural route your vet is. If you want to explore natural support and treatment for a particular problem, then do speak to a holistic health practitioner, because that's, fantastic to do, because then often, looking to avoid harsh chemicals as much as possible and only use them when they are absolutely necessary, which of course they are at some stages. But for me, they're a last resort, not a first resort.
Yeah. And Bella's just added there, she gives her dog frozen chicken feet full of cartilage, nails and all.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit gross, but yeah.
It is. I mean, chicken feet are a really good supplement for them. The only problem we've got now is the way that most chickens are raised, even in the UK. And so, unfortunately, any chickens that aren't organic are still pumped full of loads and loads of antibiotics and hormones, and raised in pretty horrendous conditions. So that's why knowing where your meat's sourced from is really, really important.
Yeah. So it brings us actually a question that we were going to speak about anyway, from Andrea P. She asks, what's the best natural flea treatment?
That's a really good question, particularly at this time of year. Now, what I would say is with flea treatments, there's a big difference between dogs and cats, because dogs are pretty tolerant to essential oils when they're used correctly and in the correct dosages. But cats, you must never apply essential oils topically. So a good generic one for someone that's got dogs and cats is to mix something called green clay with some neem powder and mix it 50%. And then you put that in a bag or a Tupperware pot, shake it up so it's mixed, and just sprinkle some on the dog or cat's coat and rub it in and leave it. You don't brush it out. And that's completely safe if they lick it or groom each other. So there's no danger at all. You can use diatomous earth, which is known as DE. The thing is about DE, I use it with caution. It's very good for external fleas, but it's very abrasive to their coat. Now, a lot of people use diatomous earth as an internal wormer. I don't recommend that at all. anyone who's used it externally for flea control, and it is very good for that, but you should always apply it to your animal outside because it's quite dangerous if it's inhaled in. But when you ingest DE, when you put it on the coat, you'll see it's almost like it gives the dog or cat split ends because it's very abrasive to the condition of the coat, but it will kill the fleas. But if you ingest it as a natural wormer, which a lot of people do, I don't think most people realise that our gut lining and our dog and cat's gut lining is literally the microvilli of single cell thick. And they're very, very delicate, and they're joined together with like Velcro-like attachments. And that's what the ion biome does, is it takes the toxins out and makes sure those connections are intact so you can't get leaky gut. But when you use DE, if it does that to the external of a coat, I don't, as a biologist, see any way that it can't be too abrasive in the delicate gut lining. So I don't use that internally. So for external flea treatment, there are some really good natural products on the market as well. I'll put some links under the video afterwards, but it's a good homemade one, green clay and neem powder, 50-50 mix, and it's completely safe for dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs.
Neem's a great Ayurvedic herb, used a lot, and I also add turmeric sometimes to Kenzo's food. Just a little bit.
I use turmeric a lot. It's wonderful.
Anti-inflammatory. So yeah, so we have just going D. Watson saying that Dr. Harvey's raw vibrance vegetables and Bravo raw meats add supplements and a high quality meal. So I'm not sure if you've heard of that.
No, I haven't heard of those. They might not be in the UK.
So yeah, no, thank you everybody for these questions. I'm just trying to keep on top of keeping up with Catherine and then keeping the questions there.
It's hard work, isn't it? Yeah, that's really good, Mary, that you're doing everything natural. And I think what's wonderful is when you question what you're feeding, putting on, in, around for your animals, it's really, really good, because then it starts making you question what shampoos you're using, etc. And it's really, really good, because the other thing I get people to look at is the cleaning products they're using in their home, because some of those are, very, very damaging. So I've seen a question here about vegan for dogs.
Yes, and that's a pressing question that, has been on many of the pet shows. Is vegan food good for animals?
Well, dogs and cats are carnivores. However, there's a lot of debate whether humans are. Now, I'm a vegan. There are no commercially produced vegan products at the moment that aren't hideously processed. So you absolutely can feed your dog vegan. Very difficult for cats, because cats are obligate carnivores, and there's no evidence at the moment that you can feed cats vegan. For dogs you can, but you need to be extremely knowledgeable and really do your homework. So you absolutely don't give your dogs any of the pre-prepared vegan foods on the market, because they're really high in carbohydrates and they've been linked to heart disease in dogs and all sorts of other conditions, nasty conditions. But if you're going to do your research and home prepare it, then I strongly believe you can feed them vegan. And in fact, the people that I do know that feed their dogs vegan, because they're so passionate about the quality of the food, probably their dogs are a lot healthier than the people that feed their dogs, say, processed kibble or tin food. But I will keep stressing, it's very difficult for dogs to get, for example, sufficient taurine, which they need for their heart health, and they can't manufacture themselves. So you do need to really know what you're doing, and you do need to supplement well.
Yeah, and
I'm really looking into, because obviously it's a passion to a lot of people. Quite often I'll feed my dogs vegan once a week, but I've done an awful lot of research on it, and even with once a week I would be very careful what I do and don't give them.
And what is it you give them in that once a week meal?
I give a variety of things. I've got a really good supplement called Pet Plus that contains a good amount of taurine, although mine do get a good amount of taurine in their other meals the rest of the week. I'll then do a wide thing of vegetables. I'll give them a few of sometimes some pulses and sometimes some beans, but there's certain beans you can and can't give your dogs. Small quantities, because in some dogs they can cause bloat. And then with a vegan diet, I would add in some carbohydrates. And mine, I would add in some sweet potato because that's one of the safest, or pumpkins, very good, or some of the squashes.
Yeah.
But you do have to make sure that you've got the amino acids going in there. So you need to know what you're doing, and always make diet changes gradually with your dogs as well, particularly with sensitive dogs if they've got any existing health issues. But there's some very good vets that I know, one of which I'm working in, and people are really looking into this because obviously it's not just, people say dogs are carnivores, but let's be realistic, folks. None of our dogs live in a natural environment at all.
I'm fine.
There's nothing natural about the way most people keep their dogs. So therefore, we've really got to sort of put things in perspective. The level of pollution, stress, EMF, etc., they're subjected to. So I feed my dogs quite a lot of vegetables, raw green vegetables, organic, and I just blend them up in a NutriBullet and feed them that because they're really, really good to help remove the toxins that they're exposed to in daily life.
Yeah. And we have another question here saying, hello, Catherine, how about turmeric in capsules for dogs?
Turmeric in capsules can be really good. Now, turmeric is a wonderful herb. I absolutely love it. My dogs have it, we have it, and my horses have it. But there's some real must-dos with turmeric. First of all, make sure it's the whole turmeric root that's ground, not isolated curcumin, because a lot of the capsins are curcumin, which is one of the isolated extracts of turmeric, and it's the one that there's the most publicity about. But curcumin extracted hasn't got all the buffering properties of normal turmeric powder, and so it can be very harsh on the liver long term. So turmeric in capsules you can absolutely give to your dogs, but dogs do need a bit of black pepper with it to make it absorbing. So the capsule should also contain ground black pepper. And depending what your dog's having, most dogs get enough fat in their diet, so you don't need to add extra oil as you would do with a human or a horse. So I would say if you're using turmeric, just make sure that they're very pure quality. So it should just be pure turmeric and black pepper, unless it's got something other medicinal. And make sure it's from the whole turmeric root, not extracted curcumin, because that could be damaging to your dog's liver.
That's interesting. I didn't know about the black pepper. I actually thought that could be a bit like too hot for Kenzo.
It's really good for the stomach. So what I would do is if I'm adding a little bit of turmeric to my dogs, I just put some freshly ground turmeric powder, or you can just grate some fresh turmeric root. And then for a dog of Kenzo's side, just one grind of freshly ground black pepper. And for my dogs, which are sort of bigger, I do a couple of grinds of black pepper, and it makes it much more bioavailable in the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James is asking, Litos Matos, is there a problem with raw eggs for dogs, or boiled eggs for that matter?
Raw eggs are better than cooked eggs, so long as you've got them from a safe source, and they're really good. But I wouldn't give eggs more than a couple of times a week because they're quite high cholesterol levels for dogs. And in the wild,
they do it twice a week.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I think Litos, I think raw eggs are absolutely brilliant for dogs. Mine have them. They're really good. You can crush up the shells as well, which are really, really good for them.
Really?
Crushed shells are really, really good for dogs. And I would give them a couple of times a week. Of course, if you can, make sure you're buying organic to avoid much less contamination risk, and also for the welfare of the chickens. So great question.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to ask you that about eggs, poached eggs, boiled eggs, raw eggs, because I've started giving Kenzo that, and sometimes he refuses to eat anything in the morning. Yeah. So if he hasn't eaten the whole day, if I'm out and about, I'll make sure that I'll go somewhere and give him a boiled egg as a kind of a backup. I go to all these organic sort of coffee shops anyway. So, and there was like, he's a bit of a famous dog in one of the ones that I go, and so they use all organic stuff. And then I just say, like, look, he hasn't eaten the whole day. By lunchtime, he won't have eaten anything. So I give him a poached egg, sort of not well done, sort of medium. Yeah. But I didn't know about raw eggs. So good question. Thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, firefighters for Trump. We've had somebody say something about the dog. It was great.
Yeah, don't even go there. Don't even think of doing that to your pet.
Yeah. So okay, so there's the questions. Most of them are all answered, but yeah, we're going to speak about the wormers as well.
Oh, egg and milk. No milk for dogs. no milk for dogs, no milk for cats. Absolute no. They really can't digest lactose. So no dairy products for dogs. I'm not talking about, I always say the 80-20 rule. So if you've got a perfectly healthy dog, then giving them a little bit of cheese as a treat isn't going to kill it. You know, it's fine, but you wouldn't routinely feed them it. So as a general rule, dogs really struggle to digest dairy, and it can cause a lot of intolerances. So you should avoid it apart from the very occasional treat.
Yeah. And then, of course, the subject that I was just going to bring up was about natural wormers. And that's what the Vermex is what I'm giving Kenzo right now, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of natural wormers on the thing. They're not, when you're looking it up on, say, DuckDuckGo, look up natural parasite control, because legally they're not allowed to call it a wormer, because a wormer is a medical term and only pharmaceutical products can be called wormers. So if you're struggling to find them, so Alpa and I use something called Vermex, VERM-X, and they do them for dogs, cats, guinea pigs, chickens, horses, etc. And they're very good. I've been using them for work. If your dog's eating cat poo, it's really important to use a natural wormer, because, yes, they can cause issues. And dogs love cat poo, but it's not particularly
right.
Unfortunately, nice and gross. Yeah, don't kiss them afterwards.
Do you know what? Kenzo actually, he doesn't like me watching him when he goes to the loo, and he always poos behind a bin. It's really weird. In the garden, if I'm like watching him, I have to turn around.
Exactly.
He won't do a poo in front of anyone.
That's very normal. Yeah, it's very normal. And also sometimes owners are, you know, in quite a rush for their dogs too. So they pick up that stress. It's like, you know, so they'll pick up what we're thinking. And, you know, say your dog's doing a poo, it's an important question, and you're thinking about your mortgage or something stressful or something, your dog will associate your thoughts as you're stressed about them pooing and cause an anxiety. So it's best, although it is very, very good to keep an eye on your dog's poo, because keeping an eye on your dog's poo is a really important sign of how healthy they are, like with all animals.
Yeah, well, when my dad brings him home, when I started giving him a little pinch of spirulina, he goes, "Oh, Kenzo's poo is like Technicolor." It's got half green and half brown.
Yeah, it's such a good discussion point. Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry, guys. I know it's not that, but what does your dog's poo say about him or her?
Yeah.
Where's Jason Q? That's the next show at 8:30, Greg. So yeah, what is bad food? What is good for bad breath? Recommendations.
So bad breath, there's two main causes of bad breath, two main causes. So one is the gut again, the gut microbiome. So just like people, if a person's got bad breath, it's either your gut or your teeth, or a combination of both. And often it's a combination of both, because your microbiome starts in your mouth. So if your animal has got bad breath, that is a sure sign there's something wrong and they're out of balance. So you would be looking at the diet. You'd be looking to make sure you're healing the microbiome, products like Ion Biome and the Plus Back, which is a fermented effective microorganism product. So you would always need to be looking. It's telling you there's something wrong with your dog's gut and their diet. And then also check the teeth. So it's really, really important for people to check their dog's teeth and gums, get them used to it and give them a really good check. But don't use any of the dog toothpaste that are on the market.
Should they brush their teeth every day?
It depends on the dog.
Brush his teeth.
If you've got a small dog, if you've got something like a Labrador and you're feeding them a good natural diet, there should be no need to brush their teeth at all. But small dogs, because of the way they've been selectively bred, their teeth are too tamped in their mouth, and their face stone is very artificial. You'd never get a dog in the wild like that. So those you would absolutely need to brush their teeth. But I would never, ever use a commercial dog toothbrush. So if you're brushing the teeth, I would make up my own toothpaste using a little bit of coconut oil, a little bit of peppermint, and a little bit of seaweed.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And it's amazing. And then you can either use your finger or a soft child's toothbrush to get in there, but I wouldn't use any commercial. So yes, the lady who asked, I think it was Brenda, check your dog's diet. There's something wrong with the microbiome, and check their teeth, because the bad breath is a sure sign there's something wrong that needs addressing.
Okay. Now Phil is asking, Phil Fatilo, I have 125-pound Alaskan Malamute Kayla, who leaks. Who's 8 now, has leaked since she was spayed, and all my female dogs have leaked. What can you recommend?
It's a really good issue. So the first thing is whether we'll have time to talk about it today or not, but spaying and neutering your dogs, think very, very carefully before you do it. It's a major operation, and if you're a responsible animal owner, you shouldn't need to spay or neuter your dogs. It's a bit different if people have got multi-pet households and you've got entire males and entire females. Then you're probably going to, for convenience, have to neuter one or the other. But spaying a female dog is a major operation. You wouldn't take your teenage daughter in and give her a hysterectomy, and people do it for all the wrong reasons, for convenience and because they're told it stops cancer. Well, if you chop my leg off, I'm not going to get cancer in my leg either. Come on, guys. Yeah. So there's a lot of controversy over spraying dogs. If you've already done it, which you have, and people are, if you are going to spray and neuter, leave it as long as possible because it massively affects. Unfortunately, once they're actually leaking, it's really difficult. There are some herbs that you can do, and there's a brilliant Facebook group called the Fenland Forager. Fenland Forager.
How do you spell that?
FENNLAND. Forager. FENLAND. Fenland Forager. FORRAGER. Now he's got the best supplement I know for dogs that leak. And you can also use something called red light therapy, which you can get units yourself, but get a proper one, not a cheap one off eBay, to help do the bladder. There's also some good homeopathic remedies. So you could go and see a vet as well. But unfortunately, once the damage has been done, it's sort of a case of damage limitation. And I really do recommend extreme caution with people neutering or spaying their dogs, and really talk it through with a holistic expert.
I haven't neutered Kenzo.
Pardon?
I haven't neutered Kenzo.
No, good. So it is a really difficult one. So the Fenland Forager, there's some good homeopathic remedies. So contact your local homeopathic vet as well. And they are the two that I found by far the most useful for dogs that are leaky.
Yeah, and then you've had someone, I think, on the back of my spirulina. Is liquid chlorophyll good for them?
It is, but be careful of the dosages. So spirulina and liquid chlorophyll, personally, I always work with self-selection. So what I would do by that is I would put some in a separate bowl and see if your dog wanted to select it. You can add small amounts, but of course, everything's dose dependent. So liquid chlorophyll is absolutely brilliant. So if you've got a good quality one, that's a really good addition to your dog's diet. And if you've got a dog with any digestive issues, just introduce it gradually, because obviously it's a good detoxer as well. So when you detox, quite often, the stuff's got to come out one way or another. So what I would say with liquid chlorophyll and spirulina, absolutely brilliant for dogs, but introduce them gradually.
Okay, so everyone, thank you for those questions. I'm going to close those now. But Catherine, talk to us about your course, because you have got some amazing information, knowledge, first of all, and you can't be speaking about it in so many shows. So tell us about your course and how that's going to help pet owners like myself.
Oh, thank you. Well, at the moment on my website, I've got two websites. So my animal-based one is www.catherineedwardsacademy.com. Now, I work with something called animal self-medicating, self-selection. So at the moment, there's a couple of courses for horses and a course for dog owners on how to work safely with herbs and essential oils. And it covers things like natural wormers, natural flea treatments, vaccinations, how to offer essential oils and use those safely, how to work with herbs and things like spirulina safely. But I'm just in the process of putting together one which is a nutrition course, so one for dogs and one for cats, which is basically to teach any animal owner or anyone caring for animals the core that they need to do, the do's and don'ts, and both how to home prepare your own food so it's balanced, or also what to look for when you're buying food or supplements. So that'll be ready. I'm doing that with my really good German vet friend, Dr. Tima Tasteler, who did work at Rocketto with me. And then the other one is what I call a general wellness course. And there's one for dogs, one for horses, one for cats. And they'll both be ready in about 4 weeks' time. And the general wellness one is what I would typically cover in a consult. And we cover food, water, vaccinations, flea treatments, ticks, worming. We cover stress techniques. We cover leads and harnesses, supplements, all the main questions that any pet owner or anyone caring for pets would know. And it's in a very usable form. So both of them will be a nice little series of video lessons, but then also a nice printed booklet. So if you want to print out recipes and things like that, you can do so. So they'll be available on the catherineedwardsacademy.com website within about 4 weeks, I hope.
No, you will get that done. And I think you'll have a lot of people that would find that useful, Catherine. And we've been speaking about it for a while. I can't be on the phone to you every other day saying, what can I do? So it'd be nice to have like a sort of a manual there to remind myself. Just if you think about it, just like the report, I actually forgot because obviously I was going through my own stuff. And then I thought, wow, this is really comprehensive. And just going through all those links, and felt a little bit guilty because I thought, oh God, I've not been doing a few of these things, because Kenzo's a very sensitive dog. He's a poodle. He's got a lot of anxiety. He's had that since he was born, and a bit of a separation anxiety as well. So, I'm having to learn every single day. Like, he'll eat for a few days and everything will be fine. He'll eat properly. His poo will be fine. His energy levels are good. And it seems like we're on track. And then about 2 weeks afterwards, he'll just change. It's almost like he gets bored of the food. So,
and can I interrupt there? Because it's really important, because they will get bored of the food. So whatever you're feeding your dog, no animal should have the same meal every single day. It's impossible to keep your dog healthy feeding the same meal every day. So with humans, dogs get bored just as much as humans do with food. So introducing a good variety of healthy meals is key, because the dog's dominant sense is smell. So how your meal smells to them is the most important thing for the dogs. And what smells good to a dog isn't necessarily what smells good to a human. So keeping that variety there is really, really important for dogs, for physical health, but also for emotional health as well.
Yeah, no, and you've had people thank you, saying that, Catherine, that would be so great. My Siamese is my only friend. I need to keep her healthy. Oh, bless. They are really your true friends. They really are. I was looking at Kenzo in the park just yesterday and saying, I'm so blessed to have him. He's such a little rabbit hopping around in the park, and it's just that unconditional love, and you feel happy just watching them. And I love animals. I love the energy that they give you, they emit. They're just beautiful souls, and dogs are just amazing.
So amazing. And don't they really teach you about, again, there's a few, when we're talking about, say, the Jabberwocky, and
I love that word.
What I love, when Rachel came up with that, what I love is people are having these real debates now, and hopefully it will transfer across to them asking more questions about their animals, because absolutely no way should any animal be having annual vaccinations. There's absolutely never a need for annual vaccinations. Now, which ones they may or may need at what age is quite an in-depth subject, and it's one of the things I cover with my clients. But at least people are starting to ask the question now, which is really, really important. And as a general rule of thumb, if it comes to a spot-on treatment or something like that, if you wouldn't put it on yourself, don't put it on your dog or cat. It's really, really important to have that level of awareness. But don't they teach us, Alpa, so well about how to really enjoy life and be in the present moment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much unconditional love, and how they can separate like each family member, and the way they have their personal relationship with each family member. It's beautiful. And they recognize he recognizes all my friends, and it's a different way that he is with everyone. It's so individual that, he's just a little walking teddy bear, and I absolutely love him. But it is concerning, this consistent sort of like gut stuff that he has, but I'm working
We can sort that out with a good variety of meals, some of which, what I say to a lot of people, particularly if they're really busy, is batch prepare and do set yourself aside a couple of hours at the weekend or something to prepare a whole load of meals.
Yeah.
And then that'll last you for the thing. And it's much easier and much less stressful because then you can alternate. And I mean, my feeding time at the zoo, I've got 5 cats, all of which like different foods. I've got 3 dogs with different needs, 3 horses, but back for you, I think it would work really well, Alpa. Yeah. And also, again, particularly with single dog households, because they're obviously the focus is more on them, is to be really conscious of what mood you're in before you put the food down, or what conversation. So we had a conversation about not watching Kenzo eat and things like that, and it's really amazing how much, because who remembers as a child having a parent or a teacher watching you eat and things, and little dogs are more fussy, definitely. Single dog households are more difficult because normally in a pack, they'd be in a dog. If you watch a dog eating in a pack, they have to gulp down their food when they can. And obviously they haven't got that pressure, which is a good thing, but it also means they can be a little more picky. But particularly with small dogs, which I know you don't do, but a lot of people do, is never ever leave plates of food down for them, because dogs must not graze, because that will really give them problems.
What was that? Never ever?
Never leave food down for them to go backwards and forwards to.
Pick it up.
Yeah, always pick it up. They have set feed times and that's it, because unlike cats, which are designed to eat little and often, sort of, but more so, they can cope. The cat's pancreas can cope with going back and grazing. A dog's can't. So if they keep picking at food all in the day, you'll really stress their pancreas.
Yeah, and something that we spoke about the other day about pancreatitis, that it doesn't show up in the blood tests.
It has to be very severe before it shows up, and the problem is that there's so many things. It's like, how many people do you know that have got gut issues, but it's all lumped together under IBS until it reaches one of the more extreme ones. But before they've got to that stage, there's loads of build-up, and unfortunately it's quite hard for the vets, because something like a liver problem or pancreatitis, the problems has to be very severe before it will show up in the blood tests. So just because a blood test comes back negative for pancreatitis doesn't mean they haven't got it. If you suspect it, listen to your intuition. And the final thing I would say on that, if you've got any species of pet, it's really important that you inform yourself on the common conditions that they've got, because if you know what warning signs to look out early, you can save your pet so much heartache by jumping in there early. And it means you don't have to use things like preventative treatment for heartworm and lungworm and horrible things like that, but you can be aware of the symptoms. So if something's going amiss, you'll spot it straight away.
Oh, and you're having a lot of people thanking you, Catherine. On a final sort of note, with the Jabberwocky, I do like that name, and the impact that it could potentially be having on our animals, in light of this whole, shedding situation that we could be facing.
Yeah, it's a really, really hard one. I think our animals are so bombarded by all these poor decisions that us humans make. And even obviously, if we're not making a decision, there's a lot of people around us that are. So I'm a strong believer in supplementation. So I would definitely using the iron biome. And as I said, I've got a discount link on my website for that. It's, as Alpa and I know, it's a brilliant problem, and it will keep the integrity of the gut and all the passages, all the mucous membranes really intact. And then I would also be using something like the liquid chlorophyll or the spirulina or chlorella to actually help with the detox of heavy metals, etc. as well. And also, one of the easiest things that we can all do free of charge is walk your dog in real nature as much as possible. So walking in woods and walking near the sea are two of the best things for all of our microbiome. So when you're in amongst the trees or when you're in the sea air, you're naturally getting such natural healing from the microbiome, and so are your dogs. So if you can't afford any supplements, even if you have to make a special trip a couple of times a week, you and your dogs will really, really benefit from that.
Oh, yeah, Kenzo loves the words. And you just mentioned supplements. Is there a just generic supplement that we can supplement our dog's food with?
I think
for all dogs.
The only generic one, it really is it depends, because it completely depends what you're feeding them and what your environmental conditions are like.
It's all homemade food
so the main ones I would do for supplements, assuming you're doing a good balanced food, would be the Iron Biome and the Plus Back.
That's what I'm doing.
You are, because they're keeping the gut integrity, and then they're getting the nutrients and absorbing them all from their good diets.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy to advise people on supplements if they need, because obviously everyone's situation about where they live, what they're feeding, etc., if the dog's got any existing health conditions, then that can really change it. But mine always have those, and they always have fresh green vegetables added to their meal.
I started doing that with the chicken liver, then some spinach and courgette pureed with the Plus Back and the Iron Biome. I can never say it properly. I'm like Iron Biome, and the link will be. I'll put everything in my description box below, and you can also see this show again on Catherine's channel. All her details will be below. I mean, I think this has been really comprehensive. We've had great interaction with the audience and reciprocity, so I really appreciate everybody's input and questions that you've asked today, because it's that we have been bombarded with so much misinformation, and our furry friends mean more to us than the humans do for some people. Absolutely. And you were saying, Catherine, to me that your furry friends have lived till 20 years, like dogs have lived up to 20 years, and I don't think people realize that they can. Their expectation is up to 13 or 14.
No, it's so sad. The life expectancy of dogs and cats and horses has gone down significantly, and it's all down to the lifestyle changes we're making for them. But the great thing is it's never too late to make that thing. And the other thing is never feel guilty, because all we do is the best we can with the current knowledge. But I think if you keep an open mind and keep asking questions, then they'll thank you for it. Our animals don't blame us for anything, and just keep asking and keeping the question and thinking, does this make sense to me? As I say to people, if it doesn't look like a food your grandma would cook, it's not food. And the same goes with our animals. But really great questions tonight, everyone. And thank you so much for such good interaction. That's much appreciated.
I mean, if it was the food that my grandma would be cooking, Kenzo would be in the garden all the time with diarrhea. I'm Indian, everybody. Remember that, yeah? Curry with a bit of turmeric in there, but a lot of spices.
Not for your dogs, but for basically the main thing is it should look like real food. Anything that looks like a brown lump or a lump of jelly out of a tin is not real food. So, yeah.
Before I met you, I've changed Kenzo's diet so many times. The vets have, before all of that, and now it's just, we tried Rocketto, and I'm sticking to I'm going to move to the raw now, the natural instinct. Yes. I think Kenzo, I have a feeling he'll like that, because the thing is, he's loved the fresh food. Yeah. But again, like you said to me, that when a dog is not eating and when their eating habits change, it's very indicative that something emotionally is not right, and I can really sense that with him, the little furry friend of mine. But everyone, thank you so much for coming on board, and I hope you found it useful. Catherine, you just have been amazing. I really appreciate this. Everyone, be sure to find Catherine on her socials, and I'll put everything there. And until the next time, Catherine.
Thank you, everyone. And kiss your animals. Bye.